This season for the Pelicans, if Brandon Ingram is not traded for a center, there's a very good chance that Zion Williamson will be playing a lot of minutes at the center position for the Pelicans this season. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a while. Today I just wanted to talk about the New Orleans Pelicans a little bit. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, when it comes to the Pelicans' options at center, they really only have 4 players on the roster that they can play there comfortably. There's the 21st overall pick in this year's draft, Yves Missi, Daniel Tice, a second-round pick from 2022 who will be playing his first year in the NBA this season. I'm probably going to say his name wrong, but it's Carlo Makovic, or at least something close to that, and then Zion Williamson. Now, for a team that's looking to compete at a high level in the Western Conference, their options at center might not seem all that great at the moment. So let's run through them one by one and see what their best option might be. Starting off with their first round pick this year, Yves Missi. He's around 6'10", 6'11". He's a defensive big man. He doesn't have any real capability shooting the three, or at least not that he's shown. He should be a solid player on defense and, be the kind of center on offense where it's like, yeah, he can get some putback dunks, maybe throw a couple lobs to him. I wouldn't necessarily look at him to be doing a ton on offense. Watching his summer league games, nothing really stood out that much other than, I will say, now don't misconstrue this. So I'm not saying that he's good at putting the ball on the floor. That's not what I'm saying. Like, he's not dribbling the ball around. But he does seem comfortable putting the ball on the floor once or twice. So taking 1 or 2 dribbles and attacking the basket strong. That does seem like something he's comfortable doing, catching the ball somewhat on the perimeter, taking 1 or 2 good strong dribbles and attacking the basket. That is something kind of special that I saw about him in the summer league games. But other than that, I wouldn't be expecting too much from him on offense. Though this might be a good opportunity for him on the Pelicans. They have a very good roster, a lot of very good players, but at the center position, they are kind of weak. So this could be a good opportunity for him to get a decent amount of minutes. If he shows he can play at a high level, he might be able to move more into the rotation, maybe even get a starting spot going on into the year, but we'll just have to wait and see about that. Next, I want to talk about Daniel Tice. You're probably familiar with him. He's been in the NBA for, I think it's like 5 years now. Feels like longer to me, honestly. I feel like he's been in the league for a lot longer than that. He is I think 31, so he was a pretty old rookie. But he's kind of known as a floor spacer at the 5 position. And he kind of is. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's a shooter that can't shoot, but he's not always super consistent with his shot. It's not always that great. Last season, he probably had one of his better seasons shooting it from the 3-point range. He had his best corner 3-point season last year, so that is promising for the Pelicans. You want to have spacing around Zion. So he could be an interesting option if he is able to hit his shots with some consistency. But he is only 6'8", so he's not providing a lot of size. He's an okay defender. He's not providing too much on that end. Actually, he's probably, I don't even know if he is an okay defender. Maybe he's not terrible. He's serviceable, He'll be a serviceable option. I don't expect him to be the starter for this team all that much. He might, if he's shooting well and he provides that spacing along Zion, he might find himself playing a lot. But I do think that's kind of a big if. I don't expect his shot to all of a sudden be super consistent. Now, third, I want to touch on Carlo Makovic a little bit. Watching him in Summer League, he actually looked pretty good. He was a second-round pick in 2022, so how many years ago is that now? That would be they were going into 2025, so this would be 3 years ago. He was a second-round pick 3 years ago, and he's just finally going to be playing his first year in the NBA. He seems comfortable shooting the ball from 3, so if he can have that with some consistency, that could be very good alongside Zion Williamson. This is just Summer League, but he looked very comfortable on the offensive side of the ball. He could put the ball on the floor a little bit. He looked comfortable taking jumpers. He was catching lobs. He was dunking a lot. I don't really know how he stacks up as a defender. He seemed like a vertical threat on offense, so maybe that could translate to some rim protection, but I'm not going to act like I know anything about his defensive game. I really don't. He looked good enough, but that was summer league. The NBA is a whole different monster, so we'll just have to wait and see. I do think he's an interesting option. He looks comfortable taking threes. I already said that, but if he could get that three ball falling, same thing with Daniel Tice, he could be a very good option for the Pelicans. And he is 6'11", so he does provide a little bit more size. He has a good jumping ability. He could provide a lot of size and spacing for this team if he's able to hit that shot with consistency. So that brings us to the fourth player I want to talk about at the center position. And as the roster stands right now, it's the player that I think will be playing the majority of the minutes at the center position, maybe even starting. And that's Zion Williamson. Now, that might sound funny to you. He is 6'6". He would be, probably the shortest center in the league. But on the other hand, he is one of the strongest guys in the league, if not the strongest. He has insane jumping ability, super strong. He wouldn't be used like a traditional center on offense. He'd probably kind of be used as a playmaker kind of on the perimeter more. And he can also get inside, finish at the basket, running more of a 5-out offense. Obviously, they might run into some problems on defense with this. Who's protecting the basket, who's, going to match up with some of the better centers in the league. Obviously, they would just bring in one of the guys off the bench for that. But I think running Zion at the 5 would kind of open up a lot of interesting opportunities for this team, as well as create some problems for them. One of those being rebounding. They might be in a similar position as the Thunder last season, starting Chet Holmgren at center. They would probably have a similar rebounding problem, but at the same time, they wouldn't have that elite rim protection that Chet provides. They might make up for it a little bit. DeJounte Murray is a good rebounding guard, but I don't think that's the same thing as having a good center who can rebound the ball and possessions for you. All that being said about the center position, that could kind of all change if Brandon Ingram gets traded for a center. If anyone on this team is getting traded, it seems like it'll be Brandon Ingram. But you kind of have to wonder, what would he be traded for? There's not a lot of real options that I see out there in the league. Now, things that I can think of, I was reading something about the Jazz might be interested in Ingram, something about Walker Kessler, but I don't see how that would work. It'd be a lot of different contract things having to move around, and I don't know if the Jazz are really ready to give up on Walker Kessler. In order to bring in 1 year of Brandon Ingram, they'd have to re-sign him, which they'd probably be able to do. But I don't know, that kind of seems like a weird move to me. Maybe they'll make that happen somewhere down the line, but that's not really one that I'm looking at. The other one that I could see kind of working out is for DeAndre Ayton. The Pelicans want a center that can space the floor. DeAndre Ayton's not a three-point shooter. That's not something he really does, but he is a very good mid-range shooter, so that is some kind of spacing, Maybe he could stretch it out to the 3 at some point, or at least maybe they could hope for that. He's a legit center. He's got the size, all that. But what would the Trailblazers want with Brandon Ingram, right? I think this is the kind of thing where the Pelicans, if they wanted to get Ayton for Ingram from the Trailblazers, they'd have to attach picks, because the Trailblazers would have probably no intention of re-signing Brandon Ingram. And really, I just kind of don't see that happening. One other thought that I had about getting Ayton to the Pelicans is kind of rerouting Ingram to the Hawks in some kind of 3-team deal. Now that would be kind of complicated. I don't know if the Hawks would even want to do that. I do think Ingram would be a pretty good fit alongside Trae Young, or he'd be a decent fit. Ingram does like to have the ball in his hands, but he could play without it. But he does like to have the ball in his hands. It might not be the best fit. And then also they just drafted Zachary Richeshe. I hope I said that right. So I don't know if bringing in Ingram for his rookie year is really something they want to do. It might stunt Zachary's potential a little bit, or not potential, his development or his opportunity. Let's go with that. So while that could be interesting, I don't really see that happening. It kind of comes down to, what do the Hawks want to do more? Are they looking to compete this season, or do they want to develop they're young guys. Part of me thinks they are leaning towards competing. They have Trae Young. They were in the Eastern Conference Finals a few years ago. They want to get back to being a real, contender in the East. I don't really see that happening for them this season, but maybe they might look to shake things up and facilitate some kind of deal where they get Ingram, Ayton goes to the Pelicans, and then, something would have to go to the Trailblazers. I'm not sure what. They could figure that all out. There's definitely... I was looking at it the other day. I don't remember the exact trade I kind of set up or was looking at, but there's definitely a way to make it work. So if anything, I could see that happening. But also, teams' trajectories and ideas of what they want to do change all the time during the course of a season. So maybe some centers will come on the market that we don't necessarily expect to be there. Maybe the Pelicans will start the season off and they're playing great and they're like, hey, we don't even need to trade Ingram. He's fitting in well with this team and everyone's playing great. So things could always change. Those are just some ideas that if they were going to trade Ingram, those are the kind of ways I could see it going, and it's kind of really hard for me to see. So all that being said, I believe that the Pelicans are going to start the year running out a lineup of DeJounte Murray at the 1, CJ McCollum at the 2, either Trey Murphy or Herb Jones at the 3, Brandon Ingram at the 4, and Zion Williamson at the 5. Now, you might think that's wacky, but I really think we're going to see a lot of that rotation. Even if it doesn't start for the few first games, I think that's the rotation that's going to be playing the majority of the minutes in the game. I think that's going to be their core lineup. And then, Trey Murphy or Herb Jones, whoever's not starting. I would think Trey Murphy might not be starting just because he's the more offensive threat between him and Herb Jones. But yeah. So those 6 guys are going to kind of be running through, being the main lineup. Daniel Tice is obviously going to get some minutes. They want to see the rookie centers get in there. Yves Misi and, what did I say his name was? Carlo Makovic. They might want to see what they have there. But I think those 6, with Zion playing a lot of 5, will be their main rotation. Now, Trey Murphy, I brought up Trey Murphy. That does kind of introduce another wrinkle. They're going to have to pay Trey Murphy at some point, whether they let Brandon Ingram go or keep Brandon Ingram. That'll probably influence what they do with Trey Murphy. He's going to, need a sizable amount of money. I do really think that if Trey Murphy was on a different team, like the Nets or, a team that he had more of a prominent role, people would be looking at Trey Murphy like, hey, that's a guy who could make a couple all-star teams. He's that kind of a shooter and that kind of offensive player. He has that kind of, I would say, upside, I think he could be that kind of player. So I do wonder sometimes if they would really want to keep Brandon Ingram and potentially, hinder Trey Murphy's development or, have him feel in a certain type of way playing on the bench or something like that. Because it's probably going to be either him or Herb Jones coming off the bench. Unless the good veteran, CJ McCollum, president of the Players Association or whatever, he's like, you know what? For the camaraderie of the team, I'll be the 6th man. Start Herb at the 2, Trey Murphy at the 3, and I'll just be the best 6th man in the league. Could we see something like that? I wouldn't necessarily be counting on that. CJ McCollum is still a great player. I kind of forgot a little bit. I was looking at his stats from last season, and I was like looking at it, and I was watching him play. CJ McCollum is still pretty much an all-star level player. He's still that borderline, if not over the borderline, all-star level of player. He's still a great player. So really, I think it'll all come down to how much are they missing a traditional center? How much will they be hurt on the rebounding? How much will they be hurt by the lack of rim protection? Or will they be able to make it work with this unorthodox lineup? Or will either of their rookie centers, Misi or Makovic, will one of them be able to play quality minutes at the 5 and really make it not that big of a deal that they're missing a key name traditional center? So if I have to make a prediction, I think I'm being way too optimistic here about this weird lineup that I think they are going to run out. I think they might be able to make it work with these players. I think we might not be seeing the end of Ingram in New Orleans. I think they could have a very good start to the season, and Ingram plays out the rest of the year here, and I think they could be a very good team going into the playoffs. Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, DeJounte Murray, CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy III, Herb Jones. Those are 6 high-quality players. There are not many teams in the league that have 6 players that have a better top 6 players than the Pelicans. The only ones that I might think of are the Thunder. You know, they have Shea, Chet, Jalen Williams, Dort. I'm not necessarily saying them in order. I'm just, Dort, Caruso. Caruso's probably better than Dort, but I'm not saying them in order, so that doesn't matter. And then who else do they have? Hartenstein. So yeah, probably the Thunder, and then the Celtics. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Chris Stapps, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Al Horford. They just won a championship, so I got to give the Celtics their props. Celtics, Thunder definitely have a better top 6 than the Pelicans. But other than those 2 teams, does anyone else really? Let's think of the other top contending teams. Nuggets, yeah, obviously Jokic, best player in the world. But is their top 6 better than the Pelicans' top 6? No. Sixers, they have a lot of talent now. They have Maxey, Paul George, Joel Embiid. But do they go much deeper than that? Obviously, they have good players behind that, but they don't have the same kind of top 6 that the Pelicans have. Mavericks, obviously, great team. Just played it to the finals, my favorite team, so I'm a little biased. But their top 6, probably not better than the Pelicans. The only real criticism about their top 6 is that they don't have a real center. So if Zion is able to make it work, running some sort of small ball 5, that's the real question. I think they are going to have a lot of success without this traditional center. And, maybe some of their rookies will be able to step up and fill in some minutes there at the 5 position. But I think they're going to have a lot of success. But I do think they will potentially get exposed if they don't make a Brandon Ingram trade. Obviously, they can make a Brandon Ingram trade, and this whole concept kind of doesn't go completely out the window, but kind of goes out the window, right? But when they match up against a team like the Nuggets or the Sixers, they might get exposed a little bit. Joel Embiid and Jokic, it's like, who's guarding them out there? But really, let's be honest, no team has a player that is guarding those players effectively. You could have, it doesn't matter if you have a real center, no one's guarding them effectively, but obviously you do want to make it as tough as possible. Zion's strong, but do you really want him matching up? My guess is when they're playing teams like that, Zion probably wouldn't be at the 5 that much. I think they would kind of switch it up. They'd bring in their rookie Yves Missi, probably soak up some minutes there. I don't know, maybe get some quick fouls, do some stuff. Just try to body up those centers. That's probably what they would do there. I'm not saying Zion's going to be the only player that plays center for this team. He won't be. He will play a good amount of power forward too. I'm sure of it. He might even play some pseudo point guard, where he brings up the ball a lot. But yeah, things are interesting on this Pelicans team. I think as long as Ingram is still on this roster, there's a lot of interesting basketball in store for us. It's going to be an unorthodox rotation. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they won't really lean into this. But the way I see it going right now, I don't see how they couldn't run something like that as long as Ingram's on the team. And then depending on how it goes, that'll probably, dictate whether or not Ingram gets traded, the team's success. But I'm hoping for the best for them. I like this Pelicans roster, and I want to see them succeed. But yeah, that's pretty much all I had for you guys. So that's the end of the basketball talk, really. You could end the video right here. But if you're sticking around, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you have watched one of my videos before, welcome back to the channel. I appreciate it. If you guys aren't subscribed, consider subscribing. It really helps me out. like the video, all that jazz. It really helps the video and the algorithm. But I just appreciate you guys watching. Thank you. I'm excited for the season to be starting up, as I'm sure everyone else is. But yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming up. The season, I want to try to get a video about every team. I probably won't do all 30, just because I don't think I have the time, and then also some teams I'm not as passionate about getting a video about them before the season, but I'll do my best to. Don't hold me that though. But yeah, it's good to be back, guys. I trailed off there for a second, but I'm just excited to be watching basketball again soon. Next month, it's coming up soon. All right, I'll see you guys later. Peace.